If we temporarily put aside the Second Amendment fetishism aspect of the gun debate, one of the primary debates when it comes to guns and gun ownership is around safety, right? Do more guns make us more safe, or do fewer guns make us more safe? Do stricter gun safety laws keep us safer, or do weaker, more relaxed gun safety laws keep us safer? How does education connect with gun homicides? How does rural versus urban location connect with gun homicides? Risen sent me an excellent set of data that was published by The Atlantic a couple of years ago, and it sheds a lot of light onto a lot of these issues. You can find the data and the article for yourselves if you Google the geography of gun deaths, The Atlantic. It's the first result that comes up. We'll also link to it in the YouTube clip for this topic, okay? If we look at firearms deaths per 100,000 people, this is adjusted for the population, right? Taking into consideration that some parts of the country have way more people and some parts of the country are less densely populated. Including so-called accidental shootings, which are really negligent shootings, suicides, self-defense gun killings, and of course crimes, which are a significant portion here, we see some interesting correlations. And remember, correlations are not causations, but if we have enough correlations and the correlations seem to have something in common, we can certainly make some assertions or guesses about what the causation might be. Remember, this is data from the era where McCain was running against Obama, so that's why we hear references to John McCain. The most highly correlated factor where we see high gun deaths per capita are states where John McCain's share of the vote was higher in the presidential election. We're talking about red states. That's right off the bat, number one. Following this, we see a really high correlation between more gun deaths per capita and a higher poverty level, more working class people, more weapons in high schools, legal weapons in high schools. These are the primarily correlated factors to more gun deaths. On the other side, what do we see between fewer gun deaths and other factors? Well, we see that college graduates, more college graduates lead to fewer gun deaths. Higher Obama vote share, more liberal states, more liberal areas have fewer gun deaths. Bigger creative classes of employment. When you have people working in more creative jobs, you see gun deaths lower. And almost as high as these, listen to this, when you have safe gun storage requirements, when you have assault weapons bans, and when you have mandatory trigger locks, you see less gun deaths. That's right, Lewis. More regulation correlated empirically with with less gun homicides. Those are the facts. Before we analyze, what's your immediate reaction?
My immediate reaction is that that's not really surprising, but you will hear a lot of people say that it is the states with the strictest gun laws that have the most shootings, the most gun violence. But in many cases, these also happen to be the states that have the most people and the most guns and the most crime overall in general.
Right. And of course, we're adjusting for the population issue here by looking at the numbers per capita. We also see fewer gun deaths where there is a higher level of well-being and happiness. That makes sense. And also areas with more immigrants have fewer gun deaths. So what does this tell us about a lot of the presumptions around gun safety that exist today? It's commonly assumed that mental illness or stress levels trigger gun violence. That doesn't seem to be borne out at the state level. No statistical association exists between gun deaths and mental illness or stress levels, although we did see that association between general happiness, which is not totally disconnected from stress, and a decrease in the number of gun deaths. Firearm-related deaths were positively associated with states that voted for McCain and negatively associated with states that voted for Obama. This will make a lot of people very mad, but it is unmistakable. The data is absolutely clear on this. However, partisan affiliation alone is not really the full picture here. When we look at the economic and employment makeup of a lot of these states, as I look at them, we see that their policies towards guns and gun ownership also seem to be having an influence here. And by the way, for all the talk about these violence-prone immigrants, Lewis, we see that when there are more immigrants, we have less violence from guns.
Right. Those are some interesting numbers. I mean, of course, if you think about it, we also have vigilantes and renegades standing around borders with assault rifles ready to shoot the first immigrants to come across the border. It's quite the situation.
So let's take a step back. What do we have? States that more strongly voted for President Obama, that have stronger gun safety regulations, that have fewer guns and more immigrants and more college education, seem to have significantly fewer gun deaths. On the other hand, states that are more Republican, that have weaker gun safety laws, that have more guns and less college education, seem to have more gun deaths. That's the data. If for you, that data supports more guns in more places, I would love to hear the logic as to how. I'm sure we will get many theories sent in via email. I can only wait, Lewis. I am very, very excited to hear from people on this, as I know we will. This is viewer-supported independent media. Please support our program by going to davidpakman.com/membership and becoming a member today.